What helped you to start doing the work of rebuilding yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I was in solitary confinement, I was lucky to be able to read. And, I would read books of people who had went through tough things, Nelson Mandela, Malcolm X, you name it, people who have been through hard things. Whenever I found myself struggling, I would turn to their books.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, reading Malcolm X's autobiography made me really curious, intellectually curious, because a lot of people when they think of Malcolm X's story, they're like, he was a leader for Black people. What a lot of people miss in his story is that Malcolm X was an intellectual, and he
Mm-hmm.
was very curious about the world, and he read everything he can get his hands on. And so I had this thirst for knowledge, and I would set my days up in solitary as if I was at school. I would study world history. I would study etymology of words by reading the dictionary and getting to the root of the word. I would read African history. And then I got into philosophy, which wasn't something that most people would have ever thought for someone like me. Is like, oh, this guy's like reading philosophy, right? But one day I was reading I think it was Plato's Republic, but it was the Apology. And Socrates said the unexamined life isn't worth living. And I remember being struck by that, like, man, what does it mean to examine one's life? And I mulled over that thought for days before I finally started to write about what really happened to me. Like, how did I end up here? How did I go from this kid with dreams of being a doctor to serving out my most promising years in solitary confinement? And journaling, I was able to start really seeing all the trauma I had experienced, all the times I had been hit, beaten, failed, but I also was able to see the things that I had done to cause harm. And like that process of being able to really interrogate one's life, it was the most powerful thing. And then what I would discover was that I had never completed anything. And that's when I said to myself, you need to finish one thing if you're going to turn your life around. And I looked around this barren cell. There was nothing there but books and paper and pen. And that's when I decided to write a book. And I wrote my first book. And I challenged myself to write that book in 30 days. And I knew that if I finished that book, I could literally turn my life around. And I call it like my write or die moment, where I knew that if I did not write, I was definitely going to die in prison. And that finishing that first book in 30 days, I was like, you know what? You're gonna have a different life. You're gonna create a life for yourself. And I ended up writing a second book, and then I just started writing down like, what do I want in my life? I didn't know if I was getting out of prison. I knew that even if I never got out, I knew the man that I wanted to become. And I started working on becoming that man through meditation, through journaling, through reading and learning about life, being accountable, apologizing to people I caused harm to. And then I started imagining a life for myself, and I wrote it down like, you know, what kind of car do I want to have if I ever get out of prison? What kind of wife do I want? What kind of family? What kind of career? And like I just started writing down all these very ambitious goals. I call it just getting crazy with my crazy. I know it's like politically correct. You can't say crazy anymore these days. But I had to get crazy. I had to think that I had to think of the impossible in order for the possible to become accessible. And that's what I did, and that began that transformative journey of like being curious about life, interrogating myself and holding myself accountable to follow through.
Shaka, a lot of what you did had some measure of a template or a pattern from someone else's life. You were reading about Mandela, you were reading about Malcolm X and others. You were visiting back with the Greek philosophers. Now, when you went into prison, did you go immediately into solitary confinement? Like, did you bust out bad and you and and that was it? I want to understand what happened in solitary confinement, because not to minimalize nor to appropriate any understanding of it, from where I sit, solitary confinement, like when you talk about you can be in prison without a wall and you can be free while locked behind a door, that's powerful. There are people who are in solitary confinement, medically, they're being diagnosed as in depression. And so I'm making some analogies here that maybe are appropriate or inappropriate, but certainly can be teaching. What happened to get you into solitary confinement? And where was your mental state then? How did you keep your sanity, or did you lose it and grab it back? As you said, crazy ain't, the right word for it anymore. It was what you were feeling then.
Yeah, that's a great question. I get sometimes people even say, man, it looked like solitary work for you. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Solitary confinement is one of the most barbaric and inhumane things that we do to people in this country. And there's actually a new film that I have nothing to do with. So when I mention this film, I have absolutely nothing to do with the film.
Hmm.
But it is powerful. It's called The Alabama Solution. I highly recommend, if people really want to understand the brutality of our prison system, I don't think there's another film that comes close to articulating what is it like to
Say
be.
the name again of it.
It's called The Alabama Solution. And it is horrifying. It's horrifying what we do to people. For me, I didn't go straight into solitary when I got in when I went to prison. And I've actually been in solitary multiple times. The first time I went while I was in college in county jail, I attempted to escape and we got caught, and they put us in solitary confinement for that. And then when I went to prison, I went the first time I got into like a fight, and I was in for about a year. The second time I got into another dust up with a guy serving time, and then that led to me being in there for another year. And every time was different. The first
Now,
couple of times,
solitary confinement, you are in a room by yourself
yeah.
and you get what, 1 hour a day out of that room?
Yeah, so you're locked down 23 hours, 5 days a week, and 24 hours the other 2 days a week. And you can go out to these little cages. They put you in handcuffs and take you out to another cage outside because they got to let you get at least some form of air. Um, and yes, it's a brutal lockdown. And I've done it in multiple facilities. The older facilities were the
Can
absolute
you
worst.
see anything when you're in solitary confinement? Are there windows?
Well, the first time I was at Michigan Reformatory, a really old prison. The only thing you can see is the wall in front of you. Except for whenever the officers are walking down the tier or they're walking
How big
somebody.
is the space, Shaka?
It's very small. It's smaller than 6 by 9 in the older prisons. Like I'm not even tall. I'm like about 5'10", and I can like touch the ceiling easily, and I can literally touch both walls by sticking my arms out. So very very small space. And then in the newer, more modern prisons, there's a door versus bars, and then it's just like a window on the door. So it's a window shutter, and so usually they have
Hmm.
the window shutter closed. So I mean, you can get on the floor, try to look up under the crack or look through the cracks of the door. Like the thing about being human is we will fight to find a way to connect. We'll figure it out, whether it's looking through the crack of the door or talking to someone through the toilet. We used to take all the water out of our toilets, plug it up, and then we can talk through the toilet to other cells. So we would figure it out. But I want to say this because I don't want people to think like solitary work. I was really lucky. I was literate. The average reading grade level in prison is third grade. And I was fortunate to have read books that told me exactly what this environment was meant to do to me psychologically and emotionally. And so whenever I felt myself getting weakened by that environment, I would turn
Hmm.
to books and I would read books, and that would help me get through the moment. Um, but it was tough. It's the toughest thing that I've ever done. When I look back on my life, it is the hardest thing that I've ever done. And what I did was I turned solitary into a university of higher learning, but I also was able to find solitude, which is different from being in solitary, inside of myself. I personally believe that freedom is an inside job. It's the work that we have to do inside to get to where we want to go. But it's tough. It's tough work. It's one of the reasons I wrote this book is I wanted people to know that I've really done the hard work for you by serving that 19 years and extracting those lessons that you can apply to life today without ever stepping foot in the cell. I've done the hard work for you, and it was hard work. Let's make no bones about it. Like, it is brutal. What I saw happen to people in there was something I would never want to witness again in my life. The way that people were treated, dehumanized, the way that I was treated, the abuses that I experienced in there, the constant threat to my life and my well-being. I would never want anybody to have to go through that. And I was fortunate to be blessed with the ability to read, the ability to write. And it's something I don't take for granted. And it's something that, when I look back on my life, I'm in this conversation with you because I'm literate. And all the magic that has happened post incarceration, none of that stuff would have happened if I would have not been able to pick up books. And it's one of the reasons that I became a writer, is because I think our testimonies are testaments that help other people. And when you have the capabilities and opportunity to share with others in whatever format, I think it's a responsibility as a human